Okay, so let's talk about a huge shift that's happening in the construction industry right now. They're calling it the prefab revolution. And really, it's all about building smarter, not just harder. Let's dive into what this actually means for how we're going to build things from now on.
So let me just kick this off with a question that I'm guessing is going to hit close to home for a lot of you. Are your projects just constantly going over budget, always falling behind schedule? Yeah, if you're nodding along, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the reality that's forcing the entire industry to rethink everything from the ground up.
And to really get why this revolution is happening now, we've got to start with the pressure. Let's take a look at the big challenges that are pushing modern building projects to their absolute breaking point.
It pretty much boils down to these three massive forces. First, you've got these labor shortages that just won't quit, making it incredibly tough to find skilled people. Then there's the insane schedule pressure. Clients need buildings done faster than ever before. And of course, the big one, costs for materials, for everything are just relentlessly climbing. Look, these aren't just small problems. They're systemic issues that demand a totally new way of doing things.
And that new way of doing things? That's the modular shift. This is where we go from talking about the problem to talking about the solution. We're starting to see prefabrication not as some kind of futuristic idea, but as a totally essential, practical response to the pressures we just talked about. And you know, this quote right here, it just nails it. The debate is pretty much over. The industry isn't really asking if they should use prefabrication anymore. The real strategic conversation happening now is about how much prefab to use and where it's going to make the biggest difference. That's a huge change in mindset.
All right, so enough with the theory. Let's see what this actually looks like in the real world. We're moving from the why to the where, and we're going to look at the places where these modular strategies are already delivering some serious value.
So here's the thing. We're seeing the most success with partial prefabrication, especially in places like Ontario and British Columbia. Just picture it. Entire bathroom and kitchen pods, completely finished with all the plumbing and fixtures, built on a factory and then just craned into place. Or think about those super complex mechanical and electrical racks for corridors, all put together perfectly in a controlled factory setting, not with a dozen different trades trying to work in a tight space on site. And even exterior wall panels showing up ready to go, insulation and cladding already built in. I mean, these are total game changers for efficiency.
And that's the real beauty of this strategy. It's a hybrid approach, right? You're not trying to build the entire building like it's a Lego set. Instead, you're being smart about it, prefabricating the most complex, the most labor-intensive parts. And this is absolutely essential for those tight, tricky urban infill projects where you just don't have a lot of space to work, but you still need that design flexibility for the rest of the building. Okay, but it's not a silver bullet. It's not all easy. Bringing in prefab creates a totally new kind of challenge, what we call the upstream risk. And this means you have to fundamentally change how you plan and manage a project, right from day one. Let that one sink in for a second. Prefabrication shifts the risk upstream. All the chances for big, expensive mistakes move away from the construction site and into the early design and planning phases. This is a huge cultural hurdle for an industry that's so used to solving problems on the fly. All of a sudden, the biggest mistakes aren't made with a power tool, they're made with a computer mouse.
So what does this upstream risk actually mean for your day-to-day? Well, for starters, your design has to be finalized and locked in way, way earlier. No more making changes once the factory has started building the pieces. Second, the coordination between your architects, engineers, and the factory becomes unbelievably critical. Any little mistake there gets blown up tenfold down the line. And finally, logistics. Just figuring out how to get these massive components to the site, that becomes one of the most important parts of the entire project plan.
And believe me, this isn't just a theoretical problem. Let's say you're building in a remote area in Alberta. If you haven't meticulously planned out the transportation, the road access, even the weather, you could completely wipe out every single dollar and every single day you were hoping to save. Bad logistics can absolutely sink the whole strategy.
Which brings us to what I think is the single most important takeaway in all of this. Seriously, if you remember one thing, make it this. This is the golden rule for unlocking the real game-changing value of prefabrication. Just look at this comparison. On one side, you've got prefab as an afterthought. You know, a last-minute idea to try and save a project that's already going off the rails. When you do that, it almost always adds more risk and complication than it solves. But on the other side, you treat it as an integrated strategy from the very beginning. It's baked into the design, the planning, the whole process. That is the key. That's how you unlock the real power here. So, we end up kind of back where we started, but with a whole new perspective. The shift to prefab, it's happening. It's really not a question of if anymore, but a question of how. So the real challenge I'll leave you with is this. Looking at your own work, how are you going to strategically and intelligently make this revolution a part of your next project?